Food self-sustainability. Think of the last time you were in an area with poor air quality, and immediately moved out to fresh air. Or the last time you had no access to drinking water, and immediately corrected the situation. Likewise, providing your own food should be as basic and logical as ensuring there is free breathing air available and free drinking water at your disposal, at all times. And like air and water, you depend on food to live. So, it is only natural to want to have complete and free control over your access to food. To be self-sustained for food means to maintain unimpeded access to a variety of food sources to stay healthy. As established earlier, life is a human right. Eating enables life, therefore, food should not be denied to anyone, included those with little or no money. Following this logic, we can determine that most of us are at risk. And sadly, most of us living in modern societies have been taught that you must work or starve. Nothing wrong with work, but it is animal-like to have it tied to a death sentence. Work or die is not a choice, is it? Here work is an absolute obligation applicable to all. We, as a world, have achieved a high level of productive abundance, enough to have food as a public service worldwide. Something like public education and the mail, a tax-funded service. For example, most parents see it advantageous that their children go to public schools, and when you buy a post stamp or pay your taxes, you get access to a worldwide delivery apparatus, the postal service. However, food has been allowed to not only remain strictly private, but also become hyper-expensive. As of this writing, inflation has caused food prices to balloon, between 8 to 20%, in many areas of the U.S. The U.S. population has been severely fragmented on their access to food. Many in the low-income population with access to food aid have acceptable to good access to food. In fact, there is a similar percentage of U.S. food aid recipients, 12.6%, as there are people living in poverty, 11.6% in the U.S. So, it is reasonable to assume that most of those receiving food aid are living under or just above the poverty level. Another group with relatively unimpeded access to food are the wealthy. This minority group, families with incomes of over $113,000 per year, 40% of the U.S. population, have the fortune to easily afford food. These two extreme groups keep food prices high in their own way. The poor often grab, go, and waste foods, reliant on the often generous food aid. And the rich grab lots of food without looking at the price labels. Like this, the vast majority of the nation, the remaining 48%, pay inflated prices for most of their food. Needless to say that this group, the 48%, is feeling the sting of high food costs the most. I can tell you that this group is painfully struggling with food costs. Dwelling among them. And I believe this group is only getting by employing methodical budgeting or sacrificing other needs and wants. And while these apply to the U.S., much of the world experience food shortages and severely more unequal access to food. For example, in the Dominican Republic, per my experience, supermarket foods are only accessible to the tiny elite population of the big cities, while low-quality, colmado foods are often the only choice for vast majority of the population. There, fresh fruits, high-quality meats and food varieties are rare, while liquor, beer, sodas and low-quality sweets are abundant. Again, I am yet to learn of a food store that operates as a non-profit, of course with exception of the rare food bank and charity operation. So, depending on this mostly for-profit system for 100% of your food intake, is ludicrous, especially if you are a low to middle income individual or family. If you happen to live in the US right now and be of low income and have to pay for your food, heavens help you. You may be spending up to 30% of your hard-earned income. I believe having unimpeded access to food means growing or farming your own food. I do understand that modern economies have evolved to use money for food distribution. But this has clearly allowed a large percentage of the world's population to be vulnerable and abused due to food insecurity. So, clearly, modern economy has not worked for the vast majority. So, self-sufficiency is worth a second look. In fact, I believe it to be the fix to the problem. I believe food farming is viable at the individual level, even in large communities and cities. Details on this concept will be developed in Part 3 of this book, but let's introduce some details here. In some rare instances you may have access to wild game, but here we'll focus on growing or farming food. To establish your food growing operation you need access to some area with the ability to grow food. Land with arable soil, pots, space for growing plants and an adequate climate. The climate can be natural or manufactured. Then you need the plant resources, plants, seeds, fertilizers, knowledge, etc. It may be a small operation, which may satisfy a small percentage of your food needs. Or it may be a large operation, potentially satisfying 100% of your caloric needs. Of course, the larger your operation, the more resources, work, and time you will need to dedicate to it. I am quite aware that this is a reason why most of us have relinquished our ability to generate food, and have surrendered our access to food sources over time. I understand many of us would rather occupy our times doing things other than producing food, myself included. But, in the process we have allowed a predicament ripe for abuse from corporations and subjugation by governments. After all, we must eat, right? And we have set up our lives to utterly depend on those often corrupt entities to provide us with food for us to purchase. And, believe me, those entities will exploit your predicament. The system is geared for and readily encourages economic and social abuse. Here I argue that, you may produce a significant percentage of your food, decrease the squeeze on the grip that the corporations and the government have on you, and have time and energy to pursue many other things in life, like career, leisure, family, etc. As we'll detail in Part 3, you may dedicate only a few hours of your day to food production and maintain a steady supply of food, enough to save your thousands of dollars per year. You may grow vegetables, fruits, and root foods in a variety of settings and climates. You may even do some food growing from a balcony of a high-rise apartment garden. Farming animals for meat takes more resources and work than plant food growing. It takes more space, care, investment, and time. To grow small animals like chickens, ducks, and rabbits takes at least some yard space. These animals must be maintained, cleaned and fed, and the animals must be maintained in a pleasant environment. For this you'll need to often control the temperature, ventilation, and lighting of cages, pens, or the corrals where animals are kept. These require a significant cost and effort. If you happen to own large open spaces like a country farm, the job does not necessarily get easier. Further, the farming of mid-sized animals, such as turkeys, pigs, and goats, takes considerably more resources and time. That is why many towns and cities will not allow their farming. If you can own the space and resources for these, you must be prepared to spend a considerable amount of your time and attention to the tasks of farming. But, you may be able to get or hire help, and may dedicate your day's work to this rewarding endeavor. You may grow and farm enough food to share or provide others with affordable high-quality food, boosting your rewards. There may be permits and licensing requirements to farm certain foods or animals, or to sell food as a farmer. I'll leave it up to you to find your AHJ's requirements for growing and farming food as a business. In general, you have the full right to grow and provide your own food as long as it is non-invasive, destructive, or harmful to human health and animal welfare. Many communities may prohibit food growing and farming, but this is constitutionally unbased, and it is against human and civil rights. As you should have the unalienable right to life, health, and the pursuit of happiness. Many states and communities have established right-to-garden laws, which simply make it more plain that people, regardless of place, have the right to provide their own food. Only Illinois and Florida have passed these laws at the state level. But on an individual basis, this right has been challenged in countless communities across the world, especially rental properties. For example, the soil within your rental property is still considered part of the property that is owned by the landlord. And often these lords want to keep the land intact for concerns over property value. Costs the lord may have to incur to remove plants and animal pens once the tenants move out, etc. So, in many cases, owning the land is highly desired to freely garden and grow your own food. In cases of rental properties, I highly recommend you politely persuade your landlord to allow you to have a grow garden or farm animals. In your persuasion efforts, you may remind them that it would make you happier, and you may consider renewing your contract when it is due. You may also offer to have this stipulation added to your signed contract that you will remove the garden and any other farming devices and restore all areas used for these to its original state. This may put your lord at ease and perhaps allow you to have your garden or farm. In summary, freedom and financial and food security benefits are great reasons to be food self-sustained. But reclaiming your right to access life-supporting resources is an even bigger reason. Even if you start to be food self-sustained in a limited capacity, this is a valuable inch of territory gained for your personal power and control over your life and your loved ones. I encourage you to fight like hell to gain what has been stolen from you over the years, literally your right to live free.
By Hector Vladimir, Georgia, USA. 2024. Music was Freedom by 32 Stitches and Chunda, Harley Bird. NCS release 2022.